It's an absolute honour to be sitting here in Greenpoint Florist on Ponsonby Road with Georgia Lines.
Hello.
So nice to see you.
So nice to see you, as always.
Congratulations on your new album,
Thank you.
The Rose of Jericho.
Out in the world, absolutely wild.
Yeah, how does it feel being out in the world?
I feel like for a long time I wasn't ready to release it. It was like this special little project that, I journeyed through to actually finish. And then now I feel like the last few months I've been like, I'm just ready to show people now, and I'm ready to kind of release this and not move on, but kind of be like, look at what I've made. Like, I'm ready now. There's a sense of relief and I guess a sense of terror, like hand in hand, of thing like, I can't control how this is received. Like, I cannot control what happens to these songs. It's my impartation to the world that I'm like, okay, here we go.
Is there any way you imagine or you want us to listen to the album? Any sort of headspace you want us to get in?
I mean, I think you have to be ready to go on the journey of the album, and be prepared to kind of dive deep into what it is. I don't think it's a heavy album, because I was very intentional about wanting to create an album that captured at this time in my life in the last 2 years, but without it feeling like, oh, that's heavy. Like, how do I get out of listening to this record?
Yeah.
I wanted it to feel like there was an ease and a lightness, and just like the depth of emotion was captured.
I think the music might take people into a different headspace. A beautiful one.
I hope so.
Yeah. I feel like the sound of this album is quite different to previous Georgia Lines music. Was that quite conscious?
Yeah, I think this is the record that I've wanted to make for a really long time. And this album feels like the truest representation of me as a person. And I've, journeyed through pop and I've loved all of the things that I've created. But this record feels like the truest, most honest representation of what I've wanted to create. But it feels like I've done something that excites me, that feels like this is the album that I really needed to make.
I had no idea until recently you were a Smoke-Free Rock Quest winner.
2014.
10 years ago.
10 years ago. That's crazy I feel like a lot has happened in 10 years, but it's been 10 years.
That must have been huge, though.
Yeah.
To win that. What was it like?
It felt like a massive deal at the time, and still is.
Yeah.
It was a really pivotal time for me as a human being, but also as an artist, and feeling like, oh, maybe I'm good at this. Like, maybe I can do this for my job.
It's a real moment then, sitting here 10 years later, and you've just released The Rose of Jericho.
Yeah.
I love the story of the title. What's the story behind that?
I remember sitting in Nick's studio, and we were talking a lot about gardening throughout this whole album. I feel like every second day we were talking about something to do with something I was planting or some seed I was trying to grow. Even through some of the songs, like references that I would kind of visualize in my mind as I was singing it, and kind of creating this world that I wanted to live in. It felt very botanical, and so I started researching different flowers that you can't kill, basically, or that have this sense of like resilience to it, and wondering like, does that even exist? And I came across The Rose of Jericho, and I loved this idea that these flowers can survive months of dehydration, without water, and then the moment that you put it back into water, it starts coming back to life. And so for me, I felt like there was this symbolism in my own journey. This whole process of this record is me beginning the journey of kind of coming back to life, of falling back into the water of, who I am, of remembering kind of all the things that maybe have been lost along the way. And I really loved that and thought, what a beautiful name to name my record. Like, I am the Rose of Jericho. And so obviously all of this, the visuals with the album, with me falling back into the water, I am the process of, coming back to life, and this Rose of Jericho that is falling back into the water. And I loved that. I loved the idea that in 20 years' time that this album would be a marker of this point, and, of my life, and signify that this is, this was the time that I came back to life. Sounds quite intense, but I loved the imagery of that.
Same.
Yeah.
So talking about your album, The Rose of Jericho, it's beautiful, and I can feel when I listen to it, it's emotional, and I can tell that you've been on a journey, and I feel like you're still on the journey. How much are you sharing about the journey?
To be honest, very little.
Yeah.
very little. And that's been a real conscious decision for me, and feeling like I am still journeying the journey. I haven't come out the other side. You know, I feel like there's this pressure that if you're a public person to a degree that you have to share everything. And I've just decided I don't want to do that. And I feel like I'm a very open and honest and willing to be vulnerable person. But when I wrote this record, what I didn't realise at the time, didn't think through, was that I'd have to talk about the songs. And I feel like I've just come to the conclusion, which I'm very okay with, that I'm not ready to talk about the songs in the album to the degree that I'm sure people are now very curious, as I'm saying this, want to know. And maybe there's a time in my life that I do talk about it, but I just feel like while I'm in the figuring out what I think and navigating lots of these things, I'm just going to keep that journey between myself and my safe people, and allow people to listen to the record and find their own meaning and figure out what they want the songs to be about for them.
But how does it feel when you perform these songs? Because I know you don't want to talk about them, but as you wrote them, you would have been in a particular headspace. How do you not allow yourself to get into that headspace when you're performing them? Or do you allow you to get into that sort of headspace?
I remember the first time I performed The Letter, I was terrified to perform that song live because it carried so much meaning for me. And I remember my parents being there and like lots of people who knew how much that song kind of meant for me were all there. And I just remember being like, I cannot look at them because if I look at them and I see them crying, which they all were, then I'm not going to be able to play the song. So there's an element that it's like, in that moment for me, there was kind of like this disassociation of being like, I just have to perform the song. But then there's this other side of it where when you do tap into that emotion and you sing from that place, you kind of become transported in this whole world of the storytelling of the song. And people feel that. You feel the emotion when someone, you know, I've experienced that when someone is performing and playing a song and you're going, oh, I feel that. It kind of connects on this whole other level. And so I think there's this tension for me of going, you know, at times I don't have the capacity to tap into that because I'm battling on that day or I'm finding it hard to sing this song. I do remember my singing teacher, vocal coach, years and years ago saying to me, you know, songs will change meaning. You write a song and then all of a sudden that song becomes too hard to sing because that, you know, I remember her using an analogy of like a dog dying. You know, if you write a song about your dog and then your dog passing away, every time you get up, you might struggle to sing that song because it reminds you of that memory. So you need to learn how to rewrite, I guess, these narratives and kind of create these stories in your mind so that you can still bring that same emotion to the song without breaking down and falling apart, because it's very hard to sing and cry at the same time, you know?
This album has sort of come together over the last 3 years, hasn't it? Did you write a lot in that 3 years?
Well, even the last kind of year of releasing music, I've written those songs within the last 3 years with all of these pop tracks. So I've written a lot of different types of music. And there's kind of been, I guess, the last few years, this not permission to write, but also permission to write whatever comes out. And a lot of those songs have just lived in a Dropbox and gone, we'll just save that for whenever we feel like that is the right thing for it to be a part of. So End of the World was a song I wrote with Jason Shushkov, I feel like coming out of COVID. And I've loved that song for a very long time, but it just didn't have a world that it could actually fit in musically. When we were pulling the record together, I was like, this has to be a part of this record because I love the song and it has this beautiful meaning, but it hasn't had the light of day because what else do you put this on?
You mentioned working with Jason Shishkoft. Who else did you work with on the album?
Nick Banders produced the record.
You've worked with him before,
I've worked with him before. Just as a person, I feel like I really needed him as a person for this record. Just kind and very gracious and very patient with me and willing to kind of press on emotions when they needed to be pressed and pull back when, you know, we needed to pull back. I mean, over the last few years, I've done a lot of sessions, a few trips to America, obviously done a bunch of sessions here. And, you know, when you're working with a lot of different people, with a lot of different musical styles and opinions and creativity, you can kind of end up with this like pile of songs that nothing sounds alike and there's no similarities other than the fact that I'm singing and I've been a part of the writing. And so I think that was the beautiful thing that Nick was able to do, and he did so beautifully, was take these songs as songs and rework them and, you know, pull things apart that needed to be pulled apart and rework things that needed to be reworked and end up with this very cohesive body of work.
So when you went into the studio and you had, all these songs, I feel like you guys would have had lots of conversation. And before you also mentioned the world that you wanted to create. And I feel like I've picked up little ideas of that world and the fact that we're sitting in this stunning florist and we've talked about gardening. That's part of it. But what else is the world?
I listened to a lot of Billie Holiday, cooking dinner and listening to the Solitude record over the last few years. That was kind of like a really comforting routine that I got into. And also I watched a lot of Disney movies, a lot of like the very first animations, the Snow White and Alice in Wonderland, and I just became so obsessed. Visually, obviously, it's amazing, but sonically, you know, the opening, sometimes like 10 minutes of the movie was this beautiful orchestral thing that I just became so enchanted by, for lack of a better term. And I just felt like I was like, I have to have these worlds a part of my album because they've influenced me and brought so much, I guess, like comfort to my own life. And I feel like as you kind of create music, naturally these things kind of emanate from you. And so I remember going into the first conversations with Nick and kind of sharing some of the things I'd been listening to and things I was inspired by, and sending him videos of, you know, Alice in Wonderland and going, can we please do this? Like, can we take this and make this into something? And I feel like you feel that on the record. There's this opening to the album with Grow Old Without You. And, you know, that's a very intentional spot that I've put that in, kind of like the opening to this film. And then on the bookend, I wanted to bookend it with that same sort of feel, which is that Grand Illusion, Disney, what the heck did I just make, Billie Holiday thing. And so I feel like there's these kind of beautiful worlds of things that I've been so inspired by, not just musically, but that's really bled into lots of the record and the process.
And maybe if you were, and I might be putting words into your mouth, maybe if you were in a dark place, when you take me there, it's so beautiful and lush and gorgeous, which I feel that the album really represents as well.
And I think a big part of my own personal journey, and I feel like you feel this in the album as well, has been learning to hold one and the other, you know, light and dark, or grief and joy. I feel like I've really learnt to sit in the feeling and really not avoid or try to rush out of the process of what it means to, you know, go through a journey of healing.
No, you're right. I think that I feel that when I listen to it, it's kind of taking me away. Yeah. There's one track on the album, all of them stop me in my tracks, but this one particular one is a duet that you do with Teeks. How did that come about?
We have become, you know, friends over the last few years and have talked about, like, we should do some writing at some point together. And it's never eventuated until it eventuated, obviously. I mean, there was zero pressure. We weren't going in to write for the record. It was just, let's just write and see what happens. And so him and I and Nick were in the room together and we wrote the song. And I just felt like there was, I mean, the three of us, I'm pretty sure, were crying. You know, there was a lot of emotion and tears in that day. And I think was maybe the last song to be written for the record, but came about through just a friendship. So it wasn't a forced, we have to write for the album. I need to fill this gap. I just feel like it captured something that I'm not saying on the rest of the album. And I was so conscious, as was Nick, with who we brought into the space and who we brought into the record. And, you know, every person that you bring in, like, it's like a painting. It brings like a different colour. And so, I mean, he was the perfect person to bring into this record. And bring that depth and emotion, and also just like a safety as a person. I feel very much like perfect person from a depth and emotion, but also safe to write about what we've wrote about.
Had you sung with him before? Because your voices together.
First time.
Yeah. When you toured America earlier this year, that looked incredible.
Yes, it was.
It seemed like a lot of people, when you were performing live, really resonated with Grow Old Without You.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It actually shocked me, to be honest, because I thought for sure there was other songs within my set that people would connect with. And what you have to, I guess, picture and keep in mind is the context of what I was doing. I was playing by myself with my keyboard, opening for Priya Raghu. She is absolutely wonderful. But if you think of the opposite of me playing with my keyboard, that is what she was doing. And so I was like kind of terrified, because I was like, firstly, thank you for having me, but is this okay? Like, are you okay with me playing ballads and diving deep into the human emotion right before you're about to go like and hype everybody back up again? But Grow Old Without You was every night, was the track that you could just see people really connecting with. And you can see it on people's faces, like the room was just silent. You could hear like a pin drop, which is just crazy to me. I'm like, I'm on the other side of the world playing this song that I've written, and it's connecting really what seems really deeply with these absolute strangers that I've never met before.
And it must sort of confirm to you that you're on the right path.
Yeah. Well, I think there's this weirdness to it that you go, oh, people are maybe liking what I'm doing, or thinking, you know, or feeling what I'm feeling, or feeling like a sense of I'm connecting to your story here. If the journey that I've been on the last few years is able to articulate maybe someone else's story, or articulate my own story in a way that it can speak really deeply to someone else, like what a privilege that is.
I'm so grateful for your music.
Thank you.
On a personal level too. And I'm so excited for the world to hear it. You're going to perform some songs for us.
And that I am.
Beautiful florist.
It's so amazing.
I love everything about this.
I did not grow any of these flowers. I wish I did.
I wish I did too.
I said that like a stroppy little child. I did not grow any of these flowers.
I'd be so impressed if you did, Georgia, because these
I really wish. I think one day I would love to have a garden where I actually know how to grow flowers like this.
It's all in the soil.
Survive.
It's all in the soil.
It's all in the soil.
Georgia, thank you for the chat.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the Rose of Jericho.
Thank you so much.
I'm so excited for the world to hear it. Excited to hear it live as well. You'll hopefully head out on tour soon?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah.
I'm trying to reach the surface, but there's weight on my feet. I'm screaming, but my head's underwater. You tried to help, but can't any longer. Don't read me a letter, I already know what it's gonna say. I'll go and get better, 'cause better is the only way. There aren't any words anymore as you empty the drawers. You said love is getting lost in the pain, and it wrecks me to know I'm the reason we broke. It took colors and it turned into gray. Ooh, this is the last thing you would ever choose. Ooh, so I'd do anything to lose the me that's hurting you. In my dreams, I'm somebody, the one you need. Someone who makes it easier for you and me to finally find our peace. Don't read me a letter, I can't watch your face as your heart breaks. Yeah, we said forever, I'll do whatever it takes. There aren't any words anymore as you empty the drawers. You said love is getting lost in the pain, and it wrecks me to know I'm the reason we broke. It took colors and it turned into gray. Ooh, walls, they caved in, sheltered me and loved me with patience. Now I wake up and you're gone and I hate it, but I know that you left me to save us. You stood under my walls, they caved in, sheltered me and loved me with patience. I wake up and you're gone and I hate it, but I know that you left me to save us. You stood under my walls, they caved in, sheltered me and loved me with patience. I wake up and you're gone and I hate it, but I know that you left me to save us. Don't read me a letter, I already know what it's gonna say. I've been searching for who I was before, but I lost where to find me. Something has to change, find another way, need to come out of hiding. I don't know quite how to say this. I'm so scared to be alone. You're all I've ever known. It's true, but I wasn't breathing, so I had to go dancing on my own. For now I have to let you go. It's true, but I won't grow old without you. I can feel your pain every single day, but I have to keep walking, knowing time will tell if you love me well. Hope you know where to find me. I don't know quite how to say this. I'm so scared to be alone. You're all I've ever known. It's true, but I wasn't breathing, so I had to go dancing on my own. For now I have to let you go. It's true, but I won't grow old without you. You're all I ever wanted. I hope you always know this, please. I hope you see it's just for now, not always. We have to go our own ways. Please come back to me. I'm so scared to be alone. You're all I've ever known. It's true, but I wasn't breathing, so I had to go dancing on my own. For now I have to let you go.